we've got it 50% fixed. You can be on unmute. And then Megan will mute me when I need to be muted. And then Kurt is in the background and taking care of the problem, which he does for me on a regular basis. Okay, so I will call this regular meeting of council to order. And if Marsha will be able to hook us up for O Canada, that would be terrific.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Except why, all right, am I off mute? Off mute, thank you. Now, as I understand it, we had an addendum for a regular meeting of council as well. So if somebody would be so kind as to make a motion to approve the agenda with the accompanying addendum. I thank you, Councillor Klustra. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of interest based on any of the material in your agenda package? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Swola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The discussion on the Rama corridor, the motion that's presented by Councillor Fallis, I will declare a conflict at this time until I've had an opportunity to talk to the Intelligence Commissioner. Or Integrity Commissioner, sorry.
He's probably intelligent too.
That might be debatable.
Councillor Swola, and the nature of the conflict?
I own my home is in Rama, or is in Ramera.
Thank you very much. And I'm unaware of any presentations or deputations. With respect to the minutes from December 7th, 2020, special council meeting regarding the 2021 budget, December 10th, 2020, public meetings regarding planning matters, December 10th, 2020, regular meeting of council, December 17th, 2020, special council meeting regarding emergency measures bylaw amendment. Any questions, comments with respect to those minutes? Is there somebody willing to move these be adopted? Thank you, Ted, and thank you, Tim. I saw the sign but couldn't see the face. And I have no comment on which was the better scenario. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence item with respect to the Chamber of Commerce, and going to open up the report. Or sorry, it's not even, it's a letter and an accompanying 200-page document, as I recall. Madam Deputy Clerk, what are we looking for here? She receives information.
Through you, Mayor Clark. Through you, Mayor Clark, this item was placed on your council agenda for discussion. Should council wish to take action on it, we would just need clarification on that, but we do have a motion to simply receive the document as well.
Thank you. So, thank you, Councilor Raymond. We're still working through that glitch. We have a motion to receive this information. If a member of council has a desire to go in a different direction, we can entertain that. I mean, there was quite a few items in there that the chamber provincially and locally is going to work on doing more lobbying with the provincial government. There were quite a few items there that they'll be lobbying for that have a lot to do with our municipalities. Some of them don't, and some of them don't have a geographic pertinence to our situation, but it was an interesting document. And with that being said, unless somebody puts a hand in the air to go in a different direction, I'll receive the information. But right now I have Councillor Elon.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm more than willing to move the motion to receive this as information. And might just suggest to the Chamber of Commerce, if they would like any credibility, at least in my mind, they now have to narrow down their issues with respect to what they would like us as a city to support. The number of items, and that is a ridiculous amount of information and really not relevant.
Merry Melodies. Oh, okay, I am unmuted. You know, these things are challenging at the best of times. But anyway, no, I think you make a good point, Councillor. There are a number of things on there. I think that we very much in Orillia's interest, and certainly in many items that would not be, and some of them actually would be maybe even counter to the interests of Orillia. But as I say, if they want to narrow down some of the things that we can partner with and lobby for, I'm glad to have that conversation. So I will ask staff for a motion to receive this information. And I've got a mover in Councillor Emon. Is there a second for that? Thank you, Councillor Spola. The correspondence dated July 7th, 2021 from the Orillia District Chamber of Commerce regarding the 2021 Ontario Chamber of Commerce policy resolution debates be received as information. Moved by Ted, second by Ralph. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried, and thank you. Okay, so okay, reports part of the council agenda. For those watching at home, this and consent part of the agenda were very much the same. There are traditionally a number of items in this section. These are items that we dealt with last week at council committee, where they were introduced and debated. And this is basically the opportunity to have them ratified. And so they will all be treated with anything in the report one, with all those different clauses will be in one resolution. And if a member of council wishes to speak to one, we will pull it for that purpose. If there's a potential change in direction, we'll do that as well. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, are we aware of any items being pulled for potential?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through you. At this time, I'm aware of Councillor Lauer wishing to pull clause 1 with respect to the Horn Business Park lands. He wishes to pull that for a recorded vote and to bring forward an amendment.
Entertain the rest of the motion. You wish to pull an item, Councillor Swola?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak on item number 3, and I'm not sure that it needs an amendment until we discuss it and get some other opinions from councillors. Can't hear you, Steve.
Councillor Heed. Councillor Heed. Pat, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yes, I'd like to speak on number 3 as well. And I'd also like to make a comment on number 5.
Number 5 is a potential change of direction, just to speak to.
Just to speak to.
Thank you. So we'll pull out items 1 and 5, and then we'll 1 and 3, sorry, capture everyone else. And then in the meantime, Councillor Heem, while I'm waiting for that resolution, why don't you speak to item number 5?
Okay, number 5 is the Winter Games Legacy Fund. And I noted when on Facebook and social media that a lot of people didn't understand that we had restrictions on how we use the money. And I thought maybe if somebody could speak to how we had to use the money, and so why we went for the Wibbit Games. Wibbit, whatever it's called.
Because it's council, we don't have all the staff waiting in wings. So we're just going to see if they can pull up a copy of the report and perhaps read that criteria for the public benefit.
Okay, what I was hearing was that people thought we should be putting it towards affordable housing or this sort of thing rather than doing sort of a fun thing, was what I was hearing.
Trying to think of who a good sponsor would be for this type of dead air. I wasn't coming up with any ideas. Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we move forward with the with the motions here, and then when we pull it up, Pat will gladly read that and address the concern that you brought. Okay, so if I could have on the screen, please, the proposed resolution with the items of 1 and 3. That the report number 2021-1 of Council Committee now before Council be adopted with the exception of clauses 1 and 3, which shall be introduced separately. Is there somebody willing to move that forward to the floor? Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Robert. Any discussion on the remaining items outside of 1 and 3? I will now call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And now we'll entertain a motion with respect to item 1, clause 1 of report 1. Respect to the Horn Business Park. That clause 1 of report number 21-1 of Council Committee now before Council be adopted. Mover and the shaker. Thank you, Pat. Seconded by, thank you, David. Any discussion? Councillor Timothy Lauer.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I have an amendment I'd like council to consider. I have yet to get a seconder. I haven't talked to anybody about this or asked for a seconder at this point, but if anybody could read through the amendment that I believe staff should have queued up. Best check that. And Mayor Clark, I don't know if you want to read it.
Sure. Yeah, I think that Tim, I'll read it and I'll see if there is a mover and a seconder. I assume that you will be occupy one of those two positions. That the motion now before council be amended by adding the following, with the exception of the following be added, and that all agreements of purchase and sale for lands located in the Horn Business Park contain a condition that requires the purchaser to work with the city through the required site plan approval process to ensure that the design of the proposed development substantially screens any outdoor storage areas from view from nearby public roads. And Tim, can you confirm that you are willing to move that?
Yes, sir.
And is there a seconder? Okay, Jay. And then we'll put it back on the screen. Actually, I'll just entertain discussion right now. Questions, comments, Ted?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And I do understand the intent that Councillor Lauer is hoping to achieve here, and I have some sympathy for it. But my concern is related not so much to the individual lots that we are addressing in this particular resolution, the lots we're selling, because I assume that the intention is to apply these to all lots within the industrial park. And I am concerned with respect to the Hydro One Operations Center that is intended to be built there. It's a large site, 10-acre site. It will be a site that has external storage, as we will have seen on the site just off Athley Road, or the ones in the township that'll be consolidated there. And it will be abutting several of the main roads in the area. So I am a little concerned that we may be imposing constraints that are going to be a challenge and difficult. If, on the other hand, all Councillor Lauer is attempting to do is apply this to lots 5, 6, 7, 17, then I would be in agreement. But I believe that I'm not sure. So the question really is this for every lot, or is this just for these four?
Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Steve. Certainly, the intent was for all lots. And if I could just speak to this amendment just for 1 second before we go too far into it. I think all we have to do is look back to the planning meeting we had this afternoon, where these buffer zones, are very important to neighborhoods. These particular lots, although they seem off and away from residential, they're up on a hill, and I would suggest that the distances between the residents at Lakehead University or some of the residential homes just to the north are as close as some of the residents that were referenced this afternoon in the planning meeting regarding noise. So these buffers, which can be coniferous trees or deciduous trees or whatever, they certainly aesthetically improve the looks of things, but they also provide noise attenuation. So in my opinion, they're very important to this development. And this is our opportunity to do this. Now we have things in place where we ask builders or developers to buffer, but this just reinforces it, gives them a heads up, and there's no surprises when we ask for these things when we get to the site plan process. As for who and who not, my preference would be for everyone. I think the two hydro development properties will be just as important, and maybe even more important given their proximity to the OPP, which would, I'm sure, appreciate a buffer between their properties. If it's a deal breaker for everyone to include those two, I can certainly take them out, because I also have a bit more faith in Hydro One being a good corporate neighbor and citizen, and may do that on their own free will and not present as much of a problem. But certainly the ones, the remaining ones above, I think it's very important that we do this.
So thanks for that clarification, Councillor Lauer. My understanding is that the Hydro One properties, it's too far along in the process to bring this to those properties. So your amendment would pertain to other properties. So, and I think I heard you say that it's your intent. And then I think the way this reads is that all agreements of purchase and sale, not necessarily just for this. I know it pertains to the main motion. So I'll need clarity from our clerk's department whether the wording in this motion and the amendment to the main motion that Councillor Lauer put forth, does it what reads, does it just pertain to the lots in reference in clause 1, or does it pertain to any future lots that we sell in that same area? Madam CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may ask that the motion actually be put on the screen so that we can have a look at it, so that we understand. As you've indicated, the Hydro One properties, those agreements of purchase and sale are now complete. So there's no opportunity to add anything further with respect to the agreement of purchase and sale. And just as I read the motion that is being proposed, it looks to me like the intent of this amendment, if passed, would apply to all remaining lands in the Horn Business Park. So if I can get clarity, because as council is aware, we've already are in negotiations, final negotiations for some other parcels of land. This particular motion that you have before you is with respect to specific lots. So if I can just get clarity, if we are then meant to go back and renegotiate agreements and purchase and sale to ensure that these clauses are included. And if a proposed purchaser is not interested in that clause, then that is not something that is further negotiable. If I can just get clarification from Councillor Lauer with respect to that.
Well, thanks for that, Madam CEO. That's kind of a neat way of announcing that those sales are completed, and that Hydro One is in fact going ahead with those other two properties. It sounds great. But yeah, no, certainly this is just simply to capture what hasn't been captured to date. Obviously, we can't go back on the previous agreements of sale, so this would be just going forward. And the other ones, which I don't think we've got too many that I think there was one or two on that side, the important side that faces out towards out towards University Avenue. But certainly this was meant for any sales from this point on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, then what we would probably suggest is that we add the word remaining within the amendment, just so that it is clear.
Just before I go to Councillor Iman, so by adding the word remaining, that will pertain to lots subsequent to this or including this ordinance? Including. Okay. Councillor Lauer, does that satisfy your desires?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve, somebody cut out there, but I would like it to cover the sales that are on the table and anything going forward.
My understanding from the chair is that is the case.
Okay, that's good then.
Then we'll wait for the, is that an amendment? Okay. And in the meantime, Councillor Iman. I'm not.
Thank you, Tim. Mayor Clark, a question through to the Clerk's Department. Since this motion is to confirm the sale of 5, or at least the authorization to finalize the agreement purchase sale for 5, 6, 7, and 17, can we expand it at this point to include all lots that are not on the table, or is that a policy direction that needs to be a separate motion that comes before the council as opposed to expanding this motion?
My understanding is by putting the proposed amendment to the amendment, which would include which would be the word remaining lots. It includes the lots that are on the table today and any subsequent in the Horn Business Park. And the Clerk's Department has confirmed that for me.
Matter of fact, I understand that's what it says. I'm just asking, is that something we can legislate in this particular context?
Okay, that's my understanding, but I will ask the Clerk's Department to weigh in directly.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through you to Councillor Eamon. That's a very good question. I think what you, Mr. Chair, and the rest of Council will need to turn its mind to is whether this amendment is germane to the issue that is before Council in terms of the sale of these lots. Certainly, Councillor Lauer could pursue a inquiry motion to that effect, to have staff report back on including that in different sales. But Mr. Chair, that would be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, we can't hear with the microphones on. in the council chamber, it's garbled. What the
Thank you,
deputy clerk
Councillor
was saying.
Eamon. I believe we did sort that issue out. The mayor is now on mute, so I will start again. That is a very good question, Councillor Eamon, and what I think Mr. Chair and the rest of council will need to turn its mind to is whether the amendment is germane to the issue that has appeared on your agenda this evening. So certainly, if Councillor Lauer is wishing to have this condition on these the remaining lots, then that could be an inquiry motion of staff. But Mr. Chair, that would be something that you would need to determine whether that is germane to this issue.
Okay, I need a little bit of clarification. So, because I thought a moment or two ago, we got clarification that this amendment to the
lots through. Um, uh,
dunking roadkill and pork chop bones and leaving them. And I realized that she.
I would like if all we can if we're just procedurally not allowed to do this, then I would put the condition on the sales that we are making today, or negotiating today, or agreeing to negotiate today, and then I guess I would have to bring a report to the very first meeting possible, I guess, to cover the other ones of my own report.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that's exactly what we do. We deal with the motion that's on the table today with respect to these lots, and any subsequent action can happen after this meeting. Certainly, council is going to approve any other lots that come up for sale or negotiated in the future. So even if the report isn't back to council, we could still deal with it in a similar matter right now, so that nothing slips through the cracks. So can we see, please, the proposed amendment again, and just make sure Councillor Lauer is comfortable and the clerk's department is comfortable that it captures the spirit of the conversation before the chair pulls his hair out. And Pat, I have you in a queue. I'll just wait for the amendment to come up on the screen first. Okay, I will read this, that the motion now before council be amended by adding the following, with the exception of the following be added, and that all agreements of purchase and sale of lands located in the Horn Business Park contain a condition that requires the purchaser to work with the city through the required site plan approval process to ensure that the design of the proposed development substantially screens any outdoor storage areas from view from nearby public roads. Now, my interpretation of this is it says all agreements of purchase and sales in the Horn Business Park, which means all properties. Okay. And what would the proposed wording for the amendment be, or do?
So, and that purpose and sale with respect to the above noted lot.
Oh, the above noted, yes, I think it needs to be referenced to clause 1. Okay, yeah. Good. This will take a moment or two. Please stand down or stand by or whatever kind of standing is best. We've just been notified by Rogers that they're having a technical glitch. So I don't know, some of the viewing may be not as clear as it should be by those viewing it at home. So if that is the case, we apologize for that. As I say, Rogers just reported that to us. Ralph, did you wish to say something about?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some concern with this motion. Will this deter from us selling.
Sorry, Ralph, you're gonna have to start, you have to start over.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I have some concerns about this, Mr. Mayor, this motion. If you're looking to visual from University Avenue, it's going to be, if this goes through, there'll be fences all the way around and everything else. And the cost of those fences is going to be substantial, especially if they have to go over 6 feet. And then we have to change another bylaw or whatever it is that they can't go over 6 feet or they can't. So I think this is a deterrent to development of the whole park there by putting these things. I think people, as Tim said, people that are responsible enough and have, similar to Ledbetter's, what they've done, they will do it anyways. So I just don't think this is appropriate.
I'm gonna halt any further discussion until I get the proposed amendment to the amendment on the screen, then we'll have something to debate. Okay, I'll ask for the, I just read the amendment, so I will put the amendment to the amendment on the screen, or ask for it to be put on the screen. That the amendment now before council be amended to delete the word all, add the words for the lots referenced in the report in place of the word lands. So that will, the intent of that, of course, is to capture the lots that we have for sale today, or that we're trying to finalize the sale of today. And assuming that Councillor Lauer is going to move that, is that correct, Councillor Lauer? Is there a seconder for that proposed amendment to the amendment? Okay, Jay. Any further discussion on the amendment to the amendment? I'll call the question. Pat, you wish to speak to the amendment or the amendment to the amendment?
Sure, whether it's the amendment or the amendment to the amendment. My question was about the fencing itself. Are we looking at strictly at fences, or are we looking at things like cedar hedges? Like what did Councillor Lauer have in mind?
Okay, so I want to call the question on the amendment to the amendment first, because that sounds like it's a question germane to either the main motion or, sorry, not the main motion, but the amendment. So before I go there, Tim, I just want to know if you're comfortable with the word deleting all and adding the words to the lots referenced in the report. You wish to speak on that?
Yeah, if I could. And sorry, Mayor Clark, but no, that wording is fine, but this has nothing to do with fences. We're talking about a landscape buffering.
Okay, I was going to stop the conversation right there. I want to move us through the process. So that's a very good conversation you and Pat are about to have, the debate or whatever it is. But I want to call the question on the amendment to the amendment, because it doesn't sound like the conversation you have will affect that. Any further question or discussion on the amendment to the amendment, the changing of the wording? I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that is failed. That has failed. And now back to the amendment. I will have it shown on the screen, and then I'll entertain discussion. There it is there. Discussion on the proposed amendment. Now I will just remind members of council that this amendment, if successful, will apply to all lands in the Horn Business Park that are referenced today and subsequently, as I understand it, because of the wording in the amendment, correct? Because the amendment to the amendment didn't go through.
So in this particular case, this amendment goes forward.
That's how it appears to me. Okay. Okay, so discussion. Jim, Pat, no? Okay, I will call the question on the amendment. Okay, does anybody wish to speak to the amendment to the main motion? 3, 2, 1. No, I don't see a desire to speak. Somebody wants to speak, they can put their sign up. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the amendment to the main motion. All in favor? Okay, that is defeated. Oops. All right. Now back to the main motion, that clause 1 of report number 2021-1 of council committee now before council be adopted, moved by Councillor Heen and second by Councillor Campbell. Any further discussion? Okay, and you want a recorded vote, Tim, for this? Okay, so staff, please set us up for a recorded vote. Any further discussion on the main motion? Okay, we'll go to recorded vote.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. A recorded vote has been requested. I will start with Councillor Lauer. If you could please indicate your vote by saying yes or no.
I can actually do better than that. No.
Councillor Klustra.
Yes.
Councillor Campbell.
Yes.
Councillor Sepola. If you could verbally indicate your vote, Councillor Sepola.
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Heen. Councillor Heen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Fallis.
Yes.
Councillor Emond.
Yes.
Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
Sir, was your mic on? Mayor Clark, there are 8 yeas, 1 nay. The motion is carried.
That was defeated. Right. Pat, further to your question about the Ontario Winter Games and the conditions on the on what the city was able to, or the committee, the recommendation of the city that we were able to spend the money on because of the good budgeting that the committee did. Councillor, Madam CAO has an answer for you, so she's going to read those criteria.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And yes, through you to Councillor Heen, as per the transfer payment agreement, any excess funds or profits generated by Orillia 2020 needed to be allocated to a legacy project, which would be invested into Orillia Sport and Recreation. A legacy fund committee was formed to determine 3 possible options for discussion. This committee comprised of 2 members from the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport Industries, 1 member from the City of Orillia, the Games Chair and the Games Manager. And there were 6 projects that were considered. The actual criteria that must be followed with respect to the legacy fund is that the Games Committee shall follow and foster the goals of the Games, and in particular shall consider the following goals: to increase opportunities for the development of athletes to pursue competitive goals and achieve their personal potential, to develop, promote, and enhance amateur sport at the community level, and funds are not to be used for general purposes or operating costs of any municipality, including the recipient or any other third party. So that was the criteria that was established with respect to the legacy fund. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, yes. Thank you, Madam CAO. Okay, now I believe we have clause 3 of report number 1, correct? And I believe I have Councillor Spola and Councillor Heen that wish to speak to that. Councillor Spola, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You can hear me? Okay, thank you. Couple of things. One is I have an email from one of our constituents that he would like me to read. He owns a house on Esteran Drive, and it's a question eventually. When he built the house, there was no trees whatsoever. He planted 9 trees, and now they're growing, obviously. It's happened a long time ago. And he has to trim them. And so by the time he's finished with the applications and the arborist and everything else, it'll cost him $3,000. Now I'm just wondering, is it per tree or $3,000 for the whole 9 trees? So that's one of the things. I guess the question is, how does this apply to an individual that just wants to trim a tree, doesn't want to tear it down, doesn't want to damage the tree in any way, shape, or form, but he just wants to trim it? Does he still need a permit? Does he still need an arborist, and so on?
If you would weigh in. Then I believe I have Councillor Fallis, Councillor Lauer, and then Councillor Lustra.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I believe you threw that one over to me. I'm happy to respond. So the draft tree preservation bylaw would contain a number of exemptions in it, including such things as trimming of healthy trees. And dead trees, their removal are also exempt as well.
Mr. Mayor, I have several other questions, but I'll wait until everybody else has gone through.
Councillor Fallis, go right ahead.
Thanks, Steve. I wonder, actually, it looked as if Tim wanted to speak to Ralph's point. I didn't know if that was the case or not. I just wanted to give him the chance to speak to it directly.
I'll take care of that. Thank you, Jay. If Councillor Lauer has his hand up, so I brought him in queue. But if that's your only comment,
Okay,
then I'll go to him right now.
Okay, so no, I did have a comment to build on that. I just wanted to say, speaking to kind of the experience of the last week, because I know a lot of people just had some concerns with this, and the one thing I really want to reiterate to people was, as many of us have all done, I had the opportunity to speak with Michael Williams this past week just about the bylaw itself and kind of the intentions of it, and he really did emphasize that it's a document that it's being worked on. It's not a finished product product yet. And the goal is to find kind of that balance between protecting our tree canopy, which is a really important asset within the city, but also making it doable within Orillia as well. And he talked also about Guelph and Toronto and how they do have bylaws of this nature that are even stricter to kind of what was on the books in the previous agenda. But the one thing that he emphasized that I got the sense from him was that this is a process, and this is just kind of moving the process forward. So certainly if anyone's got comments or concerns, definitely bring it up during the public consultation, and hopefully we'll be able to massage it and find something that works for a lot of Orillians. But so I just wanted to kind of leave that comment with everyone, but certainly supportive of moving this forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Paul. So we just reiterate one of the things you said, that if members of the public do have concerns, there will be a public consultation that takes place, and that will be well advertised by the city involving EAC and the staff, that the process, and that will definitely be your opportunity and to help evolve the process. Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. Both yourself and Councillor Follis have basically stated the point I would try to make here. This is a starting point. We realize that this is going to be a contentious issue. People have opinions, strong opinions on this, and I've certainly handled my share of phone calls. And when you do get into the discussion, most people are more than willing to let's discuss this. Let's go down the road with this. I think the process, the consultation process is in good hands, and I think the finished product that we hope comes back to council will be workable and will be acceptable to the public. So that's our goal, and rather than debating the whole issue at this particular stage, I would suggest let's approve this and get on with the consultation and save our debate for when we come back with something in final form.
I'm afraid I would concur as chair. Councillor Klooster.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Clark. Just to Councillor Sepola, Lauer, and Follis's points, I think this really needs to be a great media campaign from staff and the public as well. There are a lot of concerns from public as what they can and cannot do, and without debating the issue this evening, I think the public consultation, we probably might need to have more than one or two, just to keep everybody engaged and get a great level playing field for everyone, so that there is going to be people that aren't going to be happy, and I think we need to make sure that this rolls out in a good fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Klooster. I don't see any other hands near, nor did I see, sorry, Pat, I'll get you going, but nor do I see a potential change of direction at this point. But now I've got Pat and Mason and Q, so go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. Like the others, I've had a number of phone calls and emails from people that were greatly concerned about this particular bylaw. So I think that, yes, we do need to make sure that people know about the public consultation and about the online survey, so that they can also take part in. I've had questions about, I have several trees that have the emerald ash disease. I've got to pay to take those down. That doesn't seem fair. And people calling it a cash grab, and so I think that we need to do an awful lot of public education around this to explain what the money is being used for, and if they have to, pay to have trees taken down, and exactly what the whole process is involved in.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clark. I just want to remind members of council and the public that essentially tonight we are potentially supporting both staff and members of the Environmental Advisory Committee to go out there into the community to run those public consultations and to get that information, which is why we'll be supporting this moving forward tonight. In regards to the debate, whether or not we want to actually do this or not, or if changes come back, whether or not we want to do that and change the bylaw, that's going to be a discussion that's going to happen in the future. And for those of you like myself who have received, complaints or asks from members in the community, I would highly recommend, as I have, just letting them know that there will be, a consultation process, and they will get some of that information to them, and to make sure that you forward that information to them so that they can make their voices heard during that process, so that their comments will come back to us for when we have that debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands in the air. I have not seen a desire to go in a different direction. As has been stated a few times, this is really just to pretty well authorize the public consultation process, and it will come back to council for debate. And with that being said, I will read the motion that clause 3 of report number 2021, 1 of council committee now before council be adopted. Is there a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor? I'm going to put it on the floor first, Ralph. So moved by Mason and second by Pat. Thank you. And Ralph, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the questions that I asked before is when this report comes in, I'm a strong supporter of the tree canopy. As I mentioned before, that's one of the reasons we put it in the downtown area. But I think people's rights are really important as well. I would hope that when they go to the consultation process, we'll have an answer under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms on private property to be able to rule what a person can and can't do. And also, my question is to our CAO, sorry. Can we include some kind of a budget thing for 2021 budget that allows us to increase the funding for planting trees within our community? Do we need that in this motion, or can it be a separate motion?
Okay, I'm going to, Madam CEO can wait if she wishes to fill in the blanks that I often leave behind. But this motion here really is to enshrine what was discussed last week, and that is really just moving the process forward to more public consultation where the document will. Okay, my mic's on.
Steve, we can't hear you at all.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, this I'm going to suggest from the chair, Councilor Spola, that that would be a subsequent. Pardon me. That would be a subsequent direction. And tonight we're just moving the process of the tree policy forward to a public consultation where it can help evolve the process. And but Madam CAO, maybe as part of those consultations or as another subsequent action that Councilor Sepula's desire could be addressed. But would you be able to comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that you captured the response, and if I would suggest if Councillor Sepola is looking for that type of information or consideration, that perhaps an inquiry motion be crafted that would ask staff for a report on what the current expenditures are and the possibility of increasing those expenditures. So certainly we can work with Councillor Sepola on a upcoming inquiry motion.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, not seeing any other hands in the air. With respect to clause 3 around the tree policy, I have a mover and Councillor Ainsworth, a second Councillor Heen. I don't see any other hands in the air. I will now call the question. All in favor? That is passed. Thank you. Okay, we're actually on to report number 2. Is that correct? Hold on, we have report. Yeah, we have into motions now. And with respect to 80 Victoria Street, I will ask for a motion to hit my desk. Okay, I'll read it and see if there's a mover and a second to put this on the floor. That further to the public meeting of council held December 10th, 2020, council approved zoning bylaw amendment application number D14 893 for 2349801 Ontario Inc. regarding 80 Victoria Street, as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 11th, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. Is there a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Heath. Thank you, Councillor Imon. Discussion. Councillor Follis and Councillor Heath.
Thanks. Through the chair, I am certainly supportive of this. I was curious just if I could have staff comment. There had been some discussion about a sliver of property at the front of 80 Victoria, if it might be possible for the tenant to either rent it from the city or if they were to hold on to it. And I was just kind of curious if there was any update on that front. Thanks.
I believe we have Mr. Sugden in the green room. Okay, the beige room. Mr. Sugden.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So the strip of land would be the road widening dedication that's recommended in the city's official plan. At this point, the land is not required for immediate needs, but whenever we have the opportunity to take a road widening dedication, we should exercise that opportunity so that in the future, when that road is next reconstructed or improvements are made on it, we'll have more room to work with. In the intervening time, the abutting landowners can enter into a license of occupation with the city if they have encroachments on it or other matters.
Thank you very much. Any other, sorry, Councillor Heath, go ahead.
Mr. Sugden just answered my question. I emailed him on the weekend asking if a license of occupation was possible, and he just said it was, so thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Mr. Sugden. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Lauer. And then I'll take a piece of paper.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through you to Mr. Sugden. By doing this, we don't in any way commit the city to any resolution in the future. I'm just just a little bit concerned about the fact that there's a few unofficial accesses there and nobody seems to own what and that kind of thing. But we're not putting ourselves in harm's way, are we?
Second.
To you, Mayor Clark. So I think at the public meeting, there was quite a discussion on this issue, which was the landlocked rear parking area.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but we cannot hear you. You gotta see your microphone on.
Microphone is on. Can you hear me now?
You're good. You're good now.
So there was discussion on this at the public meeting, which dealt with the inability to access the rear parking area if there was a dispute in ownership. And it's because the laneways that provided access are not owned by this applicant. We did review this matter subsequent to the public meeting with the applicant and their solicitor, and that information is summarized in the supplementary report, which indicates that nobody can claim title to those laneways. So it'd be difficult for someone to obstruct access to that in the same manner as it would be to secure access to it. So essentially, the matter is not being made any worse by this application than what currently exists.
Okay, if I could, Mayor Clark, just to follow up,
Sure, go ahead.
I understand where we're at. I'm just wondering if anybody has speculated on down the road if we may end up being in the middle of the dispute, if there is a dispute.
Mr. Sugden? You can run, but you can't hide.
Yeah. Through you, Mayor Clark, that is always an option or an issue that whenever the municipality is involved in an approval, somebody in the future may try and claim that we're partially responsible for the situation and look to us to resolve it. The matter in this case is truly a private property matter. So I would suggest the solutions would first need to be found by the private property owners.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any further questions, comments? We'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, on to our second motion with respect to 12 Fittens Road East. The memo or the proposed resolutions on the screen, I'll read it. And I'll ask for a mover and a seconder that further to the public meeting of council held on December 10th, 2020. Council approves a draft plan of subdivision application number 43TT0001, Rock Cap Holdings, Inc., 12 Fittens Road East, including the conditions of the approval of final approval as set out in Schedule C of the supplementary memo dated January 12, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. And that council approves the common elements condominium exemption bylaw exempting Rock Cap Holdings, Inc., 12 Fittens Road East from approval of a condominium description, file number 43 CD 20001 pursuant to subsection 9(6) of the Condominium Act. Questions, comments? All in favor? Oh, sorry, I mean a mover and a seconder. Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Follis. Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks. Delayed entry, Councillor Fuster. Now, motion number 3 from Development Services and Engineering Department regarding the Grape Island Hunter Docks and housekeeping amendments. That further to the plan, the public meeting rather of council held on December 10th, 2020, council approved official plan amendment application number D09202 and zoning bylaw amendment application number D14892, municipally initiated amendments to the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, housekeeping amendments at Grape Island Hunter Docks, as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 8, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. Is there a mover and is there a mover and is there a seconder to put this on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Ewan, and thank you, Councillor Klustra. Discussion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We're into notices of motion, and we have one. And I will ask for the proposed resolution. And then I'll ask Councillor Follis to more or less introduce it, initiate the conversation.
Thanks. Through the chair, I do appreciate the first draft.
I think it can happen either way. Councillor Follis can introduce it, or I can have the motion on the floor. If you're suspecting that there may be changes afoot, then I will ask Councillor Follis to speak first. Councillor Follis.
Apologies. Yeah, I did have a proposed amendment to the motion to start off. So there's a couple of small wording changes just to reflect current changes. If I could have the proposed amendment pop up, I don't know if that's possible.
First of all, just clarity from the clerk's department. If the motion is not formally on the floor yet, so it's not an amendment, it can just be an altered motion.
Through you, Mayor Clark, that's correct. The motion is not on the floor. So depending on Councillor Follis, if you'd like to have those just included, or you'd like to speak to those at a level for council, for the rest of council, we could include that into the motion when it gets on the floor.
Okay, even better. So I guess I'll just speak to the motion as a whole and the changes. I appreciate
I
that.
think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the motion on the screen, let everybody read it. But before I ask for a move in or second, or Jay, you can talk about your potential.
No problem.
Okay, please bear with me. Whereas it has come to the City of Orillia's attention that there is a request for a minister's zoning order known as an MZO for the Rama Road Corridor project in the township of Ramera. And whereas this project could have significant impacts to the City of Orillia's economic development and planning, and whereas the development will be on the shores of Lake Couchiching, a body of water Orillia shares. The City of Orillia shares with the township of Ramera, and whereas Lake Couchiching is a major source of drinking water for the City of Orillia, and whereas local residents and pertinent agencies have not been duly consulted about this project and the impacts that it could have in the area, and whereas the use of the minister's zoning orders, or more commonly used tool to bypass existing environmental regulations that limits the capacity for public input on major planning projects, and whereas the increased use of the minister's zoning orders as a tool to bypass existing environmental regulations has great potential to negatively impact the province's environment and various ecosystems. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Orillia Council formally requests the minister's zoning order application for Ramera, so for Rama Road project located in the township of Ramera, and forwarded to your ministry be rejected, and that the City of Orillia wants to ensure proper care and study is taken to ensure water quality, shoreline health, and flooding concerns are addressed in and around Lake Couchiching. And that the City of Orillia, in line with the principles of the Indigenous reconciliation, wants to ensure that adequate measures were taken to preserve and protect the historically significant Minjikaning fish weirs or fish fence, and that Orillia City Council request the provincial government of Ontario not to use minister zoning orders as a tool to bypass environmental regulations for the expedited approval of planning projects, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the provincial minister of municipal affairs and housing, Steve Clark, no relation, as well as associate minister of children and women's issues, and Simcoe North MPP Jill Dunlop, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the township of Ramera and the county of Simcoe. And Councillor Follis, I see your head in the air. I assume it's there for a reason. So you're ready to.
Thanks. Through the chair, just some amendments I wanted to propose to this original motion. One was I did want to remove the portion that's speaking to the Minjikaning fishing weirs. I think we received all of council will have seen it, a letter from the township of Ramera, and I was very confident reading the letter that I think they are certainly, aware and concerned, and that's a focus for them. So really, this is supposed to be a comment on process, not about knocking another municipality. So I really thought it's very clear that they're consulting regularly with Rama. So I feel like that's something that could be removed. The other thing I did want to propose as well is it came up today that this process is kind of still going on in the township of Ramera. So there could be changes to the initial MZO. So I've just also proposed some small wording changes to kind of basically make it so that any potential or future MZO request of this nature would be opposed by the minister. So those are the two major changes I made to, or I'm proposing to the original motion.
Sorry, Jay, the clerk's department catch that second, the meeting of that second change?
I can,
Okay, so I understand that you've sent that to the clerk's department.
yeah,
So they're going to
yes.
give a couple of minutes to prepare that. Jay, I assume that you'll be the mover for this. Do you have a seconder?
Is there any, oh, Tim.
Oh, there we are. Okay, you do. Okay. Yep, you're going to take 4 or 5 minutes to reflect those changes, and then we'll formally put it on the floor with respective mover and shaker, mover and seconder. Mason, I know you well enough. You'll know this is about process. Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clark. I was just curious if you would prefer us, I know you mentioned there, to have 5 minutes for a break. Would you like us to move to have a recess for 5 minutes, or would you like us to discuss and debate during that 5 minutes before that's ready?
Almost every 2-hour period, we got to stop recording and start recording. So I will entertain a motion to recess for 5 minutes. Moved by Pat, second by Mason. All in favor? See you in 5 minutes. Motion the screener asks staff to do that. And I think what I'll do is, and then I'll read it as changed. And then confirm that we have our mover and seconder. And then we'll have a debate and move whatever, move the whole process forward one way or another. So where does this come? It has come to the City of Orillia's attention where the potential request for a minister's zoning order for the Rama Road Corridor project in the township of Ramera. And whereas this project could have significant impacts to the City of Orillia's economic development and planning. And whereas the development will be on the shores of Lake Couchiching, a body of water the City of Orillia shares with the township of Ramera. And whereas Lake Couchiching is a major source of drinking water for the City of Orillia. And whereas the local residents and pertinent agencies have not been duly consulted about this project and the impacts it could have in that area. And whereas the use of the minister's zoning orders are more commonly used to bypass existing environmental regulations limits the capacity for public input on major planning projects. And whereas the increased use of MZOs, the minister's zoning orders, as a tool to bypass existing environmental regulations has great potential to negatively impact the province's environment and various ecosystems. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Orillia formally requests that any future minister's zoning order application for the Rama Road project located in the township of Ramera and forwarded to your ministry be rejected. And that the Orillia City Council wants to ensure proper care and study is taken to ensure water quality, shoreline health, and flooding concerns are addressed in and around Lake Couchiching, and that the city, Orillia City Council requests the provincial government of Ontario not to use minister's zoning orders as a tool to bypass environmental regulations for the. There. Thank you. The expedited approval of planning projects, and then a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Provincial Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, with no E, as well as the Associate Minister of Children and Women's Issues, and who is also the Simcoe North MPP, Jill Dunlop, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Township of Ramera and the County of Simcoe. Jay, I assume that you're still a mover, and Tim, are you still a seconder? Okay. I will now open the floor for questions, comments, and discussion. Councillor Ted Hemond.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I would like to move that we postpone debate on this until we have heard from the Township of Rama formally on why it is that they are using an MZO process or asking for an MZO as opposed to using a regular planning process, what measures that they have put in place or are planning to put in place to mitigate the concerns raised by the various environmental groups that have written this, and that until we are given evidence that the claims, the whereas claims of harm to the city of Orillia are in fact followed up with evidence as opposed to just claims of harm. I do believe that environmental issues are important on this lake and for our city. I do believe that MZOs are being used too frequently at the moment. However, we've only really heard from one side of the argument, and I'm uncomfortable in intervening in the governance of a surrounding township and that of the county until we have had an opportunity to hear from those folks. So I would ask that we postpone that until that information is available to us.
Thank you very much. So I'll entertain the discussion on the motion, and then once I'm satisfied that we've had adequate discussion, we'll see if there's a desire to defer this. So I've got Councillor Heen and Councillor Cloustra. Go ahead.
Thank you. And if further to Councillor Eamon's need for information, I'd like to know what they're doing about water treatment, because when I looked really carefully at all the maps, and I was trying to find somewhere where they had a water treatment plant, because it seems to me that the only parcel that they have that touches on the water goes through the environmentally protected lands. And I searched high and low for someplace where there was water treatment, and I could not find anything at all that showed that. And that to me was quite a grave concern. The other concern that I had, which has not been addressed by anyone, as I looked at the number of new people that they were bringing in, and if I looked at the number of mixed units, condos, stacked townhouses, retirement residences, it could potentially be up to another 4,000 people, plus another 958 hotel rooms. Remera does not contribute anything to the Physicians Recruitment and Retention Committee. They're going to need more doctors, and it's going to be another drain on our hospital. And it seems to me if they're wanting to bring all these extra people, they should be contributing. And that's a question I would like to ask them as well.
It sounds, Councillor Heen, that if we do take the opportunity to speak to Romero, you could certainly ask those questions. Okay, I've got Rob and then Mason.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Clark. My comments are very similar to Councillor Eamon with the questions that this seems to be very one-sided, as Orillia will be doing some of the late work, and I think we should hear from our partners in Romero as to see where their next steps are. And yeah, there could be some big ramifications from these MZO orders, where a lot of these projects are getting pushed through, which we've heard in the past. But some of these MZO orders in the past have been very promising. I'm going to give Tollendale Village, for example, in the town of Innisfil. They just are looking for an MZO to pass that development project, which is a seniors retirement setting. And they also had an MZO order for the current Tollendale Village that is in the city of Barrie. So I think we need to get a little more information, whether, as Councillor Heen had suggested, the water treatment plant is a big concern as well. How are they going to be able to sustain that size of infrastructure, which seems to be quite large, almost similar to an infrastructure project with the town of Blue Mountains in the village of Blue Mountain. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Cloustra. Councillor Ainsworth.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clark. This is an interesting one. I don't want to dive into the issue too much, but it's more of a process for me in regards to the, telling other municipalities and essentially going against other municipalities and what they're wishing to do. As someone who's been on council now for over 6 years and has been on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario board and the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities Executive Committee, I've had extensive work with other municipalities across Ontario. And a big part of that work is working together to move ahead as a larger community outside of our municipality. And I think that's something that's very important. But the big part of that is that positive interaction and supporting one another. And I think that's something to be thought of when it comes to this particular motion. Ramera Township has said that they want to head in a certain direction. They're taking steps to do that. I don't think it's for us to go and say that they shouldn't be moving in that direction. That's their elected municipal officials who are setting the direction. And if people are not happy with that, when the next municipal election comes up, they can do something about it. Or if we want to make decisions in Ramera Township, we could move to Ramera Township and run for municipal office there. I think we're really overstepping our bounds in this regard. It'd be different if Ramera Township was asking for help, for example, and I would say, yeah, absolutely, let's get behind them, let's support them 100%. But to go out of our way to essentially go against another municipality, I think is rather unfortunate. I know there's a couple other examples of that happening in the past. I know Councillor Fallis mentioned to be one going on in Barrie. Those things happen, those one-offs happen, but I think it should be about, encouraging our partner municipalities and working with them. Prime example is we share lots of real estate with some of the other townships. Well, we want to continue that positive relationship with each other because there might come a time where we need their help and we need their support on some of these matters. And I don't think we want to wreck those bridges, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heen.
When he's got to Councillor Ainsworth, well, I agree that we definitely want to have positive relationships. This is going to affect us. The water from Lake Couchiching is also our water, and that's how we get our water supply. So if they do something that's going to damage our water supply, we need to be aware of it. As for the number of residents that moving in, they're going to be using our doctors, they're going to be using our hospital. That also is going to affect us. So what they're doing is going to affect us, and is something that we need to be concerned about.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. I certainly second this to get it on the floor. If I had my druthers, though, I would boil it down to probably one sentence that I disagree with the notion of MZOs, period, especially when they're circumventing such things as environmental issues. But I wonder if I could, I'm assuming everybody has read the memo we got from Basil Clark, which spelled out a lot of information there. I'm just wondering if staff had had a chance to read that and what their opinion of it might be.
I think that was just received not long before it ended up in our addendum mailbox, but I'll look for confirmation on that. But that was, I've heard a couple of, I think I'm hearing a general direction. Madam CEO, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, no, this isn't a matter that staff have been deeply involved in. There were some consultation, minimal consultation between Councillor Fallis and Mr. Sugden, but essentially this is Councillor Fallis's issue, bringing it forward, and we have not had an opportunity to review in detail the submission from Ramera.
If I could, Mayor Clark.
I'm going to suggest something, Tim, that might, sorry, Councillor Lauer, that might address some of this, and that it will be kind of taking what I've heard on the screen and then maybe suggesting a direction. But if you want to add something, go ahead. Okay. So go ahead.
Sorry, I'm clicking on and off here at 100 miles an hour. Sorry. No, go ahead. If you have an idea, I think I know where you're going, so I'd like to hear it.
Normally, I would ask if I can either speak from the chair or get Councillor Fallis to chair the meeting, but seeing as his resolution, is everybody okay if I speak from the chair? Okay, thank you. Jay, I read with interest this, and I've read some of the feedback we've got from different members of different communities, quite frankly, at least Washago, Orillia, and Ramera. And I've had a few conversations, and for me to substantiate any decision that I'm going to be involved in, I hearken back to what my grade 13, yes, grade 13, teacher said to me upon graduation. He said, make sure, Clarkie, that you contemplate all sides of a situation before you come up with your conclusion. To me, the writer of this particular report and proposed resolution should have been aware of Ramirez's consultation with our Minjickaning friends, our Chippewa friends. So I'm going to, I think we've demonstrated all along that we're good partners with them, they're good partners with us, and I just want to make sure we're going through a proper process. And I just have one question for you. In your proposed resolution, it says, and whereas local residents and pertinent agencies have not been duly consulted about this project and the impacts it could have in the area, and even in the next one, you reference public input on major planning projects. Is it strictly an environmental issue you have with MZOs, or is it because I believe that you supported the one for the YMCA, which did cut out consultation? Go ahead, Jay. Sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, through the chair. One thing I did want to note too, just so you're aware, Steve, apparently it's now back to Ted as co-chair, just in case you're calling someone in there to be aware. One thing I did want to say was, for me, yes, certainly violation of, kind of circumventing the rules around environmental regulations is a large concern. I was talking with Margaret Prophet today of Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition, and one thing really that was emphasized is this is, this is a big project. When we were deliberating on the YMCA, these are some small, site changes. This is very different. This is a large development project. But one thing I did want to emphasize, because, we're talking about this a little bit, and Mason was referencing this, is my beef is not with it's not a particular planning matter in a particular municipality. It can't be that. Each of us kind of have our own, way of functioning. What my problem is as Pat was saying, this does impact Orillia. Lake Couchiching is a major water source for us. What are the implications of this project on that water? We really need to make sure that and guarantee that we understand that before such amendments go forward. So I don't mind if someone wants to push forward with having Ramera come to speak to the table. I don't mind that as long as it's relatively prompt. I would really ask that if we're doing that, we also invite environmental groups too to speak to this, so that we get, as you're saying, Steve, a full picture. We don't want one side, we want the full picture. I'll leave that up to you guys. I'm inclined to support this as is, because I really believe using the MZO in this regard is not necessary and not appropriate. But if someone wants to push in a different direction and have some consultation, I'm more than happy to, I'll understand, kind of thing. But my inclination is to support it as it's written. Thanks.
Thanks for that. So to be clear, with the YMCA project, you were okay to use an MZO, even though it curtailed any public consultation and the impact in that area, but you are here because of the size of the project? Okay. Anyway, that's
I guess to speak to it, yeah, certainly the size of the project is a huge factor. I would also argue to, community benefit, this, and personal opinion, but, we're looking at youth housing and trying to house, homeless youth. These are different situations, and it's a pending grant that, if the approval wasn't done, it might have compromised access to a grant. So, different circumstances warrant different answers. That would be my argument. MZOs have been around for a long time, but it's just the change in how they're being used that I think a lot of people throughout the province are beginning to, take notice of and have issue with. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. I respect that others have different interpretations, but that's my personal opinion. Thanks.
I think you brought up a good point a few moments ago when you referenced, we need to know what the impact is before before anything moves ahead. But I think that's part of this process that has been omitted to this point, is that we're making some assumptions. We are listening to some people, and they may be 100% right that there are reasons to be concerned, but I think that we need further information. So it would be my suggestion. I originally was going to ask for a staff report, but I think we can probably accomplish everything by inviting our neighbors to do a deputation. And we've got one side represented here. It'd be nice to hear what they have to say too. Anyway, so that would be my combining what I heard on the screen with a deferral and inviting Rama to come and address council. We can certainly ask the questions such as the ones that Pat had. Councilor Mudd.
I'm certainly in agreement, Mayor Clark, with inviting our colleagues or our friends in Rama, but Ramera, and I think we should invite our friends in Rama as well, since they're providing the sewage treatment for this particular project, and it has a huge impact on them. But I'm also sympathetic to the point that Councillor Follis is making, that if we're going to listen to these people, I would love to understand what it is that some of these agencies we've been lobbied with the last couple of weeks, what evidence do they have that in general or in specific that this development is going to cause harm to our water supply? I mean, it's easy for an environmentalist to make that claim, and many people believe it just because it sounds logical and reasonable. But I'm not sure that that's adequate to make a decision on. So I could see that this could be a fairly extensive and demanding series of discussions that might want to be prefaced by a fairly detailed and well thought through series of questions that are in fact posed to the various groups that we may want to meet with. So a 15-minute deputation is not, in my mind, going to be sufficient for resolving the matters that are sitting there. So I think we should think of some forum where we can get well into this, so that we understand what our friends in Ramera are attempting to do from an economic point of view, a development point of view, how that hinders or supports the economic development strategies we have in our city, and as Councillor Heen says, how it impacts the various facilities. Ramera is not a subscriber, has not subscribed to supporting our recreation center, but 4,000 people moving into their facility. They don't provide a recreation facility of any description in their township. Those folks are going to need that kind of facility. They'll be using our facility, our library, as Pat pointed out, our hospital, healthcare provisions. Is the hospital aware that this kind of growth may be happening next to that? Have they taken that into account in terms of their hospital expansion plans that are going on at Soldiers? So there's a whole series of issues here that are very complex, and I'm not quite sure how best to do that. And it may be that a report from staff on a process for clarifying that might be the place to start, as opposed to our trying to think it up on the go here tonight.
Thanks for that. I think you raise a very good perspective. Notwithstanding, the chair has the ability to relax at 15 minutes on occasion, which we've done a number of times over the years, depending on the issue. Certainly, an issue of this nature, we wouldn't want to compress into 15 minutes, and even with the Q&A after would do a complete injustice and probably wouldn't serve us much further than we are right now. So if it's okay, I will go away and have a chat with our clerks department about how to best do that, whether it's a special meeting of council or whether we just allocate extra time at at one particular meeting that we've already got, maybe on a relatively short agenda day. But that's if there's a motion to defer. Councillor Heen and then Councillor Ainsworth.
And I would really like to see Chief Williams involved in that meeting as well, because it's going to have a huge impact on that Rama First Nation.
Yes, I've reached out to them on this, and we can certainly make that invitation. Councillor Ainsworth.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Clark. Just to get things rolling a bit, I'm happy to second Councillor Eman's comment in regards to postponing this to get that additional information. I think there's been a lot of discussion around the table. Obviously, folks want to hear from some different agencies as well as the other townships as well. I think that information would be valuable for the future discussion. I'm not sure if he had a particular date in mind, but I would be happy to second that moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't have a particular date in mind. I'm not even sure if we'll ask for one right now, unless there's something that comes to mind. But I think maybe what we'll, Madam CEO, do you have a suggestion, or is this a conversation that we can have subsequent to the meeting and talk about process, and then maybe give Romero a couple of dates in which they might take advantage of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we don't typically do a postponement without a date, but in this particular case, I think it would be wise. And that would enable you and I to have a discussion and also reach out to the township folks to see what their time frame is. If I can, though, Mr. Mayor, I've heard discussion about getting evidence from some of the other groups that are lobbying. Perhaps some clarity in that regard as to whether a part of this process would be that we respond back to their correspondence requesting the evidence that they have to substantiate their claims within the letter. So if I could just maybe ask through you, Mr. Mayor, just for some clarification on what members of council would be expecting in that regard.
And before we put a motion on the floor, okay, Councillor Eman, I don't have to paraphrase, you were paying attention.
Mayor Clark, I think the CAO's suggestion of seeking written clarification of what evidence they have would be a good first start for some of those agencies. They've taken the time to write us and lobbyists. I think it would be fairly easy to go back through what they're claiming to be the harm that the city is facing and to determine whether it is just a generic harm that they support in their lobbying efforts, or whether they have specific evidence that this development will in fact do what they're saying.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on the proposed motion? Councillor Foss.
The one thing I am aware of that I really would emphasize us keep into consideration if we're drafting something of this nature is that, in terms of the process itself, we don't want to be in a situation where, we're having a discussion after the MZO has already been approved. Because then it's pointless. The debate's over. So if this is going forward, it needs to take place relatively promptly. I would argue within the next month would probably be best.
Certainly, we can probably expedite the process, and the other thing we can maybe do, Councillor Foss, is reach out to Romero to find out what timeline that we're working within, so that we fall within those restrictions. So glad to do that as well. Okay, I'm satisfied that there's been adequate debate on the main motion. I'm also satisfied that there seems to be a desire to defer this. And is this a verbal deferment? Okay. And it's moved by Councillor Eman, second, I think, by Councillor Ainsworth. Is that correct? Thank you. In that case, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. And Mason, your card said say. Okay. We don't have any deputation motions. Hard to do those when you don't have a deputation council. We do have a consent agenda, and for our folks at home, this happens very much like our reports agenda. There are 4 items on this particular one. They'll all be captured in one motion unless there is a desire by a member of council to remove one of those for separate consideration. And Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have any such items?
Mayor Clark, at this time, I'm not aware of any items being pulled for changes.
Did anybody hear me read that? Can I have it on the screen one more time, please? So council adopt the recommendation as set out in the consent agenda for the regular meeting of council held on this very January 18th, 2021. Is there a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth and Councillor Klustra. And is there any discussion on any of those items? Call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Nice catch, Ralph, at the end there. Okay, we're in the bylaws. And I'll have them show up on the screen as they're being proposed. She's still smiling back there. The following bylaws be enacted. 2021-1, a bylaw to amend Chapter 170 of the City of Orillia Municipal Code, Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officer Amanda Mason and Caitlin McCormick. Formal welcome to the hood. This bylaw amends Chapter 170 of the City of Orillia Municipal Code to repeal the appointment of Megan Costello and Chelsea Sarah and appoint Amanda Mason and Caitlin McCormick as municipal bylaw enforcement officers in accordance with the Police Services Act. 2021-2, a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General with respect to the provision of the police services. This bylaw authorizes the mayor and clerk to enter into a 3-year agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General with respect to the provision of police services and authorized by council as set out in the CIP memo dated December 18th, 2020 from the Corporate Services / Legal Department. 2021-3 amendment number 87 to bylaw number 2014-44, the zoning bylaw for the City of Orillia with respect to 80 Victoria Street. This bylaw amends comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2014-44 to allow the future development of the property known as municipally as 80 Victoria Street, being phase 4 of the North Lake Village as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 11th, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. And 2021-4, a bylaw to exempt a plan of common elements condominiums from approval of the condominium description Rock Cap Holdings Inc. with respect to 12 Fittens Road East. This bylaw exempts 12 Fittens Road East from certain Planning Act approval requirements and authorizes the General Manager of Development Services and Engineering to sign an exemption certificate as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 12, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department and as authorized under the Planning Act. 2021-5, a bylaw to adopt amendment number 12 to the official plan for the City of Orillia, housekeeping amendment number 3. This bylaw amends the official plan for the City of Orillia to bring the city's official plan into conformity with the Planning Act and the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, and to make changes, corrections to the text and mapping, and to provide further clarification to improve the city's official plan as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 8th, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. 2021-6, amendment number 88 to bylaw number 2014-44, the zoning bylaw for the City of Orillia, housekeeping amendments. This bylaw amends zoning bylaw number 2014-44 to incorporate housekeeping amendments that affect lands within the City of Orillia as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 8, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. 2021-7, amendment number 88 to bylaw number 2014-44, the zoning bylaw for the City of Orillia, housekeeping amendments, Forest Avenue South Road Allowance, Road Allowance, 371 Victoria Crescent, water lot in Lake Simcoe and adjacent portions of the bed of the Lake Simcoe. This bylaw amends comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2014-44, again, in order to regulate the use and replacement of shoreline structures on 371 Victoria Crescent, a portion of the Forest Avenue South Road Allowance, the municipally owned water lot in front of Forest Avenue South Road Allowance and adjacent portions of the lake bed of Lake Simcoe as set out in the supplementary memo dated January 8, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. Holy moly. 2021-8, amendment number 89 to bylaw number 2014-44, the zoning bylaw for the City of Orillia, removal of the holding provision Charter Development LP and Charter Development GP Inc. Phase 9B of Stone Ridge subdivision. This bylaw amends comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2014-44 to allow the future development of the property municipally known as Sierra Drive and Orion Boulevard north of Atlantis Drive, being Phase 9B of the Stone Ridge subdivision development as set out in the CIP memo dated again January 8th, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. 2021-9, a bylaw to provide that blocks 116, 117, 118, and 119 on registered plan 51M-1155 Stone Ridge subdivision Phase 9B are not subject to the part law control under the Planning Act, Charter Development LP, and Charter Development GP Inc. This bylaw exempts blocks 116, 117, 118, and 119, Plan 51M and 1155 from the part law control provisions of sections 55 of the Planning Act in order to allow these blocks to be further sold off as new residential building lots to be developed in conjunction with Phase 9B of the Stone Ridge subdivision as set out in the CIP memo dated January 8th, 2021 from the Development Services and Engineering Department. That's it. Thank you. And a request to speak by a councillor. Is there a, can I put it on the floor first, or you want to speak about process? Go ahead, Tim.
Mayor Clark, just asking staff for a clarification on 2021-3, where we spoke of 80 Victoria Street. I wasn't aware that that was part of the North Lake Village. And
no, it's funny. When I was reading that, I just thought it was one bylaw to cover both of those things. I will seek clarification from Mr. Sugden if he's still around.
Through you,
Mr. Sugden, could you be so kind? Do you understand the question?
I believe so, yes.
2021-3 references 80 Victoria Street. And then that said, does this bylaw amends property of 80 Victoria Street being Phase 4 of North Lake? So there's something a little askew there.
Yeah, I think that's a copy and paste error, and good of Councillor Eamon to catch that. Is certainly not part of North Lake Village, so that part could be struck from that piece.
Is it satisfactory that we just strike being Phase 4 of North Lake?
Correct, yes.
Okay. No, I don't formally have this on the floor either because I don't have a mover and a seconder, so. Okay, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I just wanted. I was just gonna say that this isn't on the floor as a formal motion yet, so maybe we can make the.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So just for clarification, I believe that was a typo on the agenda pages, but the motion itself doesn't contain that description, and the bylaw itself does not contain that description. So the motion can move ahead as is without being amended.
Okay, so what, I take you at your word, but what assurance does council have that they're passing the properly worded bylaw? That the bylaw itself, we're not displaying it as worded properly. Okay, that's true. That'd be good.
Mayor Clark, what we can do, we have the bylaws in perfect form here for the meeting as required under the Municipal Act, but certainly the physical motion that I have in front of me is just in the motion that you would sign to that effect would just be the bylaw number and the title, if that is sufficient for council.
That's, as you say, a typo, and it's only on the agenda. Okay, is council satisfied with that? Okay, then we're good. And is there a mover and a seconder to put these bylaws on the floor? Thank you, Councillor Iman, and thank you, Councillor Sapola. And any further discussion on the bylaws? Councillor Follis.
Through the chair, I had a real issue with the 2021-8 and -9 as it pertains to the Stone Ridge subdivision. The reason I bring it up was I'm curious, first of all, what the process is, because we deal with a lot of planning matters, but in this particular situation, it's already pretty much approved at this point. It's kind of the finishing touches on it rather than our ability to kind of analyze it in great detail. The reason I bring it up is, right now, and I'm sure Mason could speak to this as well, we do have issues in West Ridge around things like parking, around things like drainage, sidewalk placement. There are a lot of issues that could have been, I believe, ironed out kind of in the earlier stages before it got to the actual rollout. And I'm just wondering, what's kind of the process here? How do we have our say in terms of making adjustments to a subdivision of this nature? The other thing I wanted to mention as well, and I know it seems to be the way a lot of these developments are being rolled out now, but in terms of diversity of the development itself, we look downtown, we see, commercial intermingled with residential, industrial, even in small parts. It's kind of an organic neighborhood. Whereas now, we're seeing, commercial is all in one section, residential all in one section, industrial all in one section, and we know that there are environmental impacts of that. There's not as much kind of intermingling that way, and it kind of I believe it lends itself to issues. So I was curious, just if I could have someone speak to the process of this, like, when do we have the opportunity to have our input on these types of developments? Do we get input? And is there a process that could be put in place to ensure that is the case? Thanks.
And I see making up for slow reaction time last time, not really. Anyway, Mr. Sugden, if you would be so kind, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clark. So draft plan approval for subdivisions is a process that includes both a statutory public meeting and a council deliberation on the draft plan. In this case, the Stone Ridge draft plan was actually approved a number of years or even decades ago. So it was draft approved by council in the late 1990s, and it's taken that long for this development to build out. this is its final set of phases. So what's being done here is the lifting of the holding symbol from it. So when it was approved with zoning put in place with holding provisions on it that included conditions that needed to be met before they could develop the phase. So they've met the conditions, one of which was a subdivision agreement, and that's being negotiated. The subdivision design details have been flushed out as far as servicing and that type of thing. But the principle of land use, the lot fabric, the pattern of land use in there was all dealt with at the draft plan approval stage in the late 1990s in this case. Going forward, when the next draft plan approval comes in, it'll follow the same process. There's been minor changes to the legislation over the years, but it's council will get a chance to review the next draft plan of subdivision that comes in at that stage and impose whatever conditions they see fit. I would remind council on the comment about the mixed uses of commercial intermingling within residential neighborhoods. This council, I believe, dealt with a zoning amendment application to change a commercial block that was in the Orion neighborhood, Stone Ridge, and I forget what the other street was, but there was a block that was designated at the time of draft plan approval for commercial land use. The developer was unable to market it for that, and they came forward to this council with a request to change that to residential, and it was approved. So there are times in the future when council will get us another opportunity to review applications such as that as well.
Mr. Sugden, do you ever get stumped? Thank you for that. Councillor Lauer.
Actually, Steve, when I went like that, it was just to take responsibility for the draft plan, which, because I was around at the time.
If there's a need to, I'm not sure if there is, but then you can throw yourself under your own bus of selection. Jay, final comment?
Thanks. I just wanted to say, don't worry, Tim, I don't blame you or anything like that. No, the one question I guess I have, just kind of following up, is like, we do have, I get a lot of complaints around parking and around, another example being snow removal, because snow piles up in neighborhoods like Julia. What are the examples, like, have we addressed some of these issues that come up? Or, are we kind of going through this status quo? Just if
Jay, I'm going to suggest from the chair, those are, I think, questions very worthy of being answered. I hear concerns expressed myself on occasion. I'm just not sure if they're germane to these two bylaws. But I would encourage you to reach out to Mr. Sugden or whomever on whichever department head is relevant and have those and get those conversations. Have those conversations. Any further questions or comments on the proposed bylaws? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Request to speak. See, I went to you. You didn't want. Okay, go ahead, Tim.
Okay, just sorry. I just would hate this discussion to end on a negative tone. If you go out and walk around West Ridge, obviously there's always complaints, no matter what part of town you were in or whenever there's a development, there's always some issues of some sort. But West Ridge is a beautiful development. We were very, very fortunate in the way that has unfolded, and it's because of our planners. It's because of, I think, Charter Construction, who kind of orchestrated that whole area. But if you go and walk out there, there's woodlots everywhere, there's trails everywhere, there's beautiful EP area. It's a very nice area, and so far I think we've done a really good job on it, despite a few glitches here and there.
It's funny when Councillor Falls was talking about commercial. I remember when there was that proposed small commercial development, we got opposition from residential. But anyway. A point well made, Councillor Lauer. And now I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Announcements. confirming bylaw, and then we'll do announcements. I'm announcing that we have a confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2021-10, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held today, January 18th, 2021, be enacted. This, okay, moved by Mason, seconded by David. Thank you. All in favor? Sorry, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And announcements? Any announcements? Thank you. Councillor Lauer.
Thanks, Mayor Clark. I just wanted to make mention of the mystery people or person who has put in and maintained the rink in Brewery Bay at the Leacock home. I believe it's one of yours, Ted, one of your group that are doing it. They've done a beautiful job. It's a nice size. They poked a hole in the ice and they flood it regularly and keep it clean after every snowfall. And I've checked it out a couple times, not to ski on it, obviously, but they've done a nice job, and lots of people have used it. And I realize, and they've been there since Christmas. Of course, the new regulations are going to affect things, but certainly over the last holiday season, it's been a nice addition. So thanks to those mystery folks.
Thanks for that. I was a little distressed the other day, Councillor Lauer, when I received a picture of you out on the ice with a shovel. And I'm sure you had a skate on one foot and you had a plastic bag on your other foot. But anyway, so I was quite alarmed that I would have to either take you to or pick you up from the hospital.
Okay, just to clarify, I had nothing to do with that rink. I was
No,
just.
No, you were not in that rink. That's right. As Councillor Kluster.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Clark. I just want to put a shout out to all of our city workers and frontline staff for the great maintenance of the roads lately, the sidewalks. Every day the sidewalk plows are out putting sand down, and they've done a great job of maintaining the city streets. It was nice to see last week they were out, did a scrape down of all the streets that did have significant snowfall, and there's been lots of positive feedback from residents, and I just want to say thanks.
That's terrific. Thanks very, very much for that. Any further announcements? Thank you. Are we aware of anybody speaking to the open public forum? Okay, thank you. In that case, I will accept a motion or entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mason. Thank you, Ralph. All in favor? Have a wonderful night.
Stay safe, everyone.
Wonderful tomorrow.